quite something to explore the way in which, despite all these ways of being able to seemingly convey and capture and characterize what's going on here, all the names we give the phenomena of the world, and of course the phenomena of our experience. It turns out that upon close investigation of experience, we can begin to discover the ways in which our experience, by its very nature, defies characterization. It defies rendering and interpretation. And this is an amazing, amazing thing, because we have a tendency within sort of the flux and flow of life and the way we humans sort of think about life. We imagine that we actually know what things are because we have names for them. We know what experiences are because we're able to describe them, right? I know what this is, it's sadness. I know what this is, it's a computer that I'm looking into, and on and on and on and on. But the question is, and it's a very provocative one, which is it actually the case that we know what these things are simply because we may have words for them? And that can be investigated, and that's really what my work is all about, is the investigation of just that. What is this actually? What is being experienced right now? What is occurring experientially? There's a well-known expression in the Buddhist tradition, in the Heart Sutra of Buddhism, that says, form is empty and emptiness is form. Sounds, abstract, maybe meaningless, unless maybe you're steeped in Buddhist traditions, studied them in some way. But I'll try and convey my own understanding of that with a little simple metaphor that I like to use sometimes, which is, I have this little coin here, and I call this the coin of reality, or the coin of experience. And so this saying, form is empty and emptiness is form. Well, what that's referring to is the reality that what's occurring right now, which is showing up as what we would call forms that we have names and labels for, words for, when investigated, can be discovered to be empty, in the sense of it can't actually be collapsed down into that descriptive framework. It can't actually be captured by that framework. It transcends our descriptions and definitions in the most radical way. It is entirely, entirely, entirely beyond comprehension. It is, and it is so because it's infinite. It's not definable. And we can discover that. In fact, we're really experiencing that infinity, that ungraspable, unpin downable nature of our experience. You could say the other side of the coin. One side of the coin is the way you're describing this moment, the way you imagine this moment is, or what you imagine is occurring right now, experientially. And then the other side of the coin is, you could say, what it is more fundamentally, what it actually is, what it's actually made of, what it's constituted of. And it's interesting that, to me, that this question of what's actually going on here is often not really posed by most humans, it would seem. Like, what is actually our experience? What is it? What's going on here? And when I pose a question like that, as I do often, the invitation is not really to analyze your way into the answer to that question, to not sort of think your way into the answer. But the question is designed to drop you into an experiential exploration of the question. So what this moment is, if you were to describe this moment, investigate what that description is actually referring to, what's actually occurring experientially, and see if you can get to the bottom of what your experience is. Because if you can't get to the bottom of what it is, well, that's really quite an interesting thing and profoundly liberating thing to discover. And that's, again, really why I love to come together with people and explore this, because the discovery of that other side of the coin, the indescribable, inconceivable dimension, if you will, of our experience is it's freeing to discover that, because we discover the way in which reality is freed of all of the ways we conceive of it to be, and all of the seeming limitations suggested by language and description and conceptualization. So one way to think about a lot of spirituality, probably the lion's share of it in my explorations, is in one form or another, it's about improving the life condition, improving our lives in some way, up-leveling our lives. And you could call it kind of and humans are in many respects on this sort of journey of kind of, I call it the life improvement project. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to make reality better in whatever ways you might aspire to make it better, to improve upon it. But what I'm really interested in, and is actually, rather than trying to improve upon life, let's explore what life actually is before we assume that it needs to be improved. Maybe life is intrinsically extraordinary and astonishing and beyond any possibility of being improved upon because of its fundamental nature. I mean, maybe that's a possibility. But before we jumped to any kind of conclusions about what life is, actually, again, the experience of life, let's investigate it. So let's explore that right now. Sitting here as we are. So I just invite you, as you're sitting here very naturally, not having to do anything special, anything you might think of as meditation per se, but just sitting here and feeling the presence of life, the presence of being, the presence of existence. You could say feeling your own aliveness. A felt sense of simply being. In a very real sense, it's absolutely undeniable that something is present. Let's call it life. Let's call it aliveness. Let's call it being. Something is here. Something is present. But just let yourself feel the presence of this what is life? What is existence made of? You can feel the sense of that you are, that life is. It's undeniable. What is that? Just let yourself feel your way into the answer to that question, into the exploration of that question, really. Because there really is no answer. It's as if something is undeniably present. Let's just call it life, being. This sense of here-ness, something is here, palpably, concretely present. And yet, curiously, when we feel our way into this concrete presence, this beingness, this aliveness, we can't really find it. We can't really say, oh, here is what life is. I've found what it is. I've identified what it is. I've located it. I've discovered what its what it's fundamentally made of, what it's constituted of. So it's this very curious, it's paradoxical, but it's experientially paradoxical. It's not so much like a concept, but the experiential paradox is something is undeniably here, a sense of being that pervades all of our experience. No matter how we're describing experience, what's, we could say, most basic about it is the fact that it is. Sadness is, joy is, happiness is, confusion is. This is what all described, all the descriptions share this in common, the fact of their being, the fact of their isness, their existence. This is what's fundamental to everything, the fact that it is. But just feel the presence of all of this that is, in all the different ways it may be showing up in terms of the particulars, flavor of it, or sense of it. Just feeling the fact that experience is. The fact that you are whatever you imagine yourself to be. And no matter where we look, if we look at what we think of as ourselves, if we look at what we think of as some subjective experience, if we look at some sensation, sound, sight, we come to the same curious place of not being able to really conclude what this is. That it is can't be denied, but what it is an absolute mystery. The sense of the beingness of things, the beingness of ourselves, the beingness of all of this, the existence of it, the suchness of it, as the Buddhists say, the pure, raw presence of everything, the vitality of it, the aliveness of it. Even though it's not graspable and we can't pin down, we can't get to the bottom of what this infinite mystery is, it has the, we could say the felt sense of it is one of, it's very powerful, it's very solid, and yet insubstantial at the same time, but solidly here, relentlessly here, continuously here, even as it's constantly shaping itself into something different every instant. And there's something about the subtle, ungraspable nature of this beingness that is nourishing and uh, satisfying and fulfilling. But ultimately, it becomes it's tricky, trying to put words on it because I can't put words on it, and that's the challenge of trying to convey anything about it because it's just entirely beyond comprehension. So all of my words about it are wrong, um, even if they might be potentially evocative. They're not. Basically, experience just transcends whatever we think it is in every instant. And we can feel that. Just feel the way in which your experience is inconceivable. It's obvious, actually, that you can't quite say what this is. You can't quite put it into a framework of understanding, a box of interpretation. And of course, you are included in that. Whatever you imagine yourself to be is not what you are because you are inconceivable. Ultimately inseparable from the very inconceivable substanceless substance of the universe. That's our nature. So every experience that is encountered in life is a doorway into discovering just this, because every experience is none other than the mysterious shining forth of this inconceivable, groundless ground that somehow gives rise in every instant to what's here. I mean, how that's occurring, no clue whatsoever.